a ton of material. A regular handout won't work through the chat. That much I have determined. Have collected at least 110 entries in my handout. That's equivalent to a more FYI for Linux only. And I've never tried to do a Linux only more FYI. It's a problem. The only way I could do things with that is I cannot during the meeting deal with this issue. We have to collectively decide how much material do you want to have, and I'll have to email it to you because it only goes to the attendees. So anybody who has an idea, raise your hand. I'll call on you, and you can press your space bar to temporarily unmute yourself. Go ahead, Bob.
I'm not seeing what the problem is. You mean you've got so much material that I cannot be put into a single document?
Oh, it's in a single document. The bad part, you can't put it on the chat. It's size restricted.
Oh, the size of the document is too large.
Way too large. Because if you had a problem with the South Suburban one, which was a lot smaller, this is more than double the size of the one from the South Suburban.
Well, I guess those who want it should simply ask to have it sent.
Well, at the moment, if you want everything, that's the way it has to be. If you want a shorter, smaller one, I would still have to cut it down and then send it by email because I can't do it during the meeting, host the meeting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
okay.
It's a case where it is voluminous, and I've come across lots more information that I didn't even bother adding to that list, or it would probably be somewhere around 130, 140 entries.
Well, then the question is, how many people in this entire meeting would really give serious attention to more than about maybe 10 or 20?
That's what I'm partially getting at. And here's the thing. I don't care if it's a listing of 10, a listing of 20, a listing of 30, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't look at them and at least open them up, get a sense of what the content is, it's wasting everybody's time and effort. Okay?
Well,
So
I think for myself, I hearing about fewer topics but in more depth and more detail is probably preferable to just glossing over 100 topics.
some of it is glossed over, but I usually view this stuff or read enough of the stuff to know that it's not just a gloss over. So it's a case where I think, is it for every individual here? No. Some of it is for the less advanced users, and some of it's for more advanced. In fact, I got about 5 or 6 articles that are broken into a list of advanced stuff, but I didn't get time to get through the 110 to find out if there were more that I needed to switch over to the advanced list. So that makes a difference too. All right, Drew, you can hold on your space bar to.
Yep. My recommendation would be to just put the file on your Google Drive and share the link to it.
Well, I can do that. That's not the real issue. Whether I email it or I put it on the Google Drive and share it, you've got to have the address. If you don't have the address, you ain't getting to it. So bottom line is either way works because I can email pretty good sized documents. I think it's 25 megabytes is 20 or 25 megabytes is the limit. In Zoom, the attachment is between 20 and 25 kilobytes.
Now, I was suggesting that if you put it on your Google Drive and share it, you can paste the hyperlink to that in the meeting notes in the chat.
Well, I understand that that would have to be something I have to remember for the future, not so much today. It's just a case where generally I don't give out that information in advance of the meeting, mostly because for the most part, I give out my handouts to the attendees for attending because it always contains more information than just what gets covered in the meeting.
Click on the chat and you want to attach a file. Zoom automatically gives you links to your default Google Drive and OneDrive and Box and all that.
Yes, they do, but I have not used it in that fashion in the past, so I've got to get used to it.
That way you're handing it out only to the people who are physically at the meeting.
I understand. It's just a case, what I'm saying is that's not for this meeting. It would have to be for a future meeting. I can't explain all of what's going on, why I'm suddenly discovering tons and tons of information. And by the way, for Linux, more so than Windows, old material, sometimes several years old, is still valid today as it was when it was first created and posted out on YouTube or somewhere else on the internet. That's the queer thing. And there is some Windows information that also goes back to Windows 3. Okay, it's fair game. It still works. It's still Microsoft's tools. I can go back 30 years if I had videos and articles and on those tools, and they're still as valid today as they were when they were first created and released. That's the thing. But that doesn't hold true for all programs, all applications. It's an individual thing, and you have to kind of be careful. You can use it also as a guideline, meaning, yes, this can be out of date, but the principle of what is in the article or video still applies today with updates. So that's where I'm coming from. So I'll get off my soapbox. I've let you guys know what's going on. I was very taken back with some of the negative feedback that I got. Not that it wasn't justified. I have seen by editing some of the videos that something is going on. I just couldn't get a handle on it. And I don't necessarily want to point fingers at anybody. And I certainly don't want to point fingers in a meeting. So generally speaking, if I have to edit this video before I have it posted, then I'll have to, I may send an email to anybody who seems to have an issue that's causing some of this negative feedback, because it hurts all of us. All right. Off my soapbox, I'll open up the meeting to general questions, comments, et cetera, et cetera. There's been a hell of a lot of Linux news going on.
I have I have something that I need help with, that if anybody knows about it. There is a video player called MPV, and it's available. It's multi-platform. It's available for Windows, Linux, Mac. And when I install it on Windows, it plays videos normally and works just fine. When I install it on Linux, it complains about the video and audio stream and doesn't actually load the video. Has anybody ever used MPV?
I haven't offhand. I don't know about the others. It's sounds a little suspicious, but one area that may shed some light is some sites are not properly enforcing DRM, and that could possibly be a factor. Exactly how and why, I can't tell you.
Hmm.
Any other problems, questions, etc., or comments? I have noticed in Linux news that there's been a lot of changes. Kernel 6.17 probably will be officially released by the 25th of the month, which is earlier than I thought. Somewhere around that time frame, the beta LMDE7 should be out, and I don't expect it to be delayed much unless they really mess things up in it. I would think by next month sometime, LMD7 should be available. There's a lot of other distros that are really jumping on board Debian 13, which is called Trixie, and really liking what they're seeing. It's the biggest unexpected shift in the philosophy of Debian distros to be as up to date as Debian 13 appears to be. And currently, it did have a minor upgrade. It's 13.1 right now. Another piece of news, if you missed it, you must be living under a rock. But the funny thing is, the government supposedly, or Trump directly, invested something like $10 billion in Intel, which has been going downhill fast. And now this past 5 days, we have NVIDIA investing $5 billion, but they have an alternative motive that's different than any other people buying into Intel to keep it afloat. And that is right now, before NVIDIA stepped up to the plate, you had AMD, you had VIA, which virtually disappeared from the market, and Cyrix that have the patent acceptance to create x86 CPUs. Now NVIDIA, with its infusion of $5 billion, they too are getting the x86 capability, something they've probably been looking for some time. And so that gives us 4 possible manufacturers of x86. And x86 doesn't mean 32-bit computers. x86 is the general architecture of Intel processors that's been on 64-bit for years. So basically, that's a big piece of news. And what I don't know specifically yet, but I get information that seems to lean that NVIDIA may create a composite-like chip like the Ryzen processors that end with a G, which includes a Radeon video GPU. Only it will be an Intel CPU with NVIDIA built in. And that may also give some stabilization that has not been in existence with NVIDIA's proprietary code. And it might give them a new edge that they didn't have before. So that's something that's coming up. I also came across a video, which I haven't posted anywhere yet. It's on GPUs and some basic information about them. And what I found surprising is if, say, a NVIDIA GPU is an RTX ending with the number 90, that's got a perfect GPU chip. If it's an 80, it may have one of the processing sections locked out because it was defective. And I've had another video that really shows how TMSC manufacturing plant in Arizona, how clean things absolutely must be during the whole process of creating the chips. And right now, they have to import super pure water from Taiwan, where the main facility is at, and super pure sulfuric acid that's needed in the process of creating our chips. If you don't have it, you get too many contaminants, and those kill those chips, reducing the overall yield of the disk. And the GPUs that, as they go down from 90 and 80, have less and less of the processes being available. So if you get something like a one with a 30, you've got so few processes in that unit, GPU, it's a miracle it even works. So this is something that came as a real surprise with two different videos that I came across. And it's GPUs are becoming very, very necessary for a lot of users, even though most of them are getting it as a GPU chip on their motherboard in place of old Intel video graphics chips. And the GPU chip is really needed. You're just sharing your main computer's memory to hold the video content. And it's also used heavily in anybody doing the virtual assistances of AI. So if you're using AI to any extent and you got a GPU of any kind, whether it uses shared memory with the CPU or it has its own dedicated memory or a combination of, that's how important the GPU is becoming in modern systems. Older systems that don't really have a GPU, they may suffer some, but they can still use AI usually well enough that who cares? Because most of them, nobody in general is trying to, outside of businesses maybe, use AI that heavily in day-to-day work. Now, that said, it's a case where we have tons of changes, and I've got changes today. Besides the high volume on my list of what I call handouts, we have a case too where I have another list that is not a handout. It's going to be material to cover in a different way than I have done in the past. And I'm not going to get into details on that at the moment. So it's kind of a case where we have to bide our time on some of this. It's just right now, if I took everything that I have also farmed in the way of information that I haven't put on my list, you would end up having, like I say, way more than 110 items. And that's not a joke. Peter, press your space bar. Press the space bar. It should unmute you.
Mute this way.
There you
Okay.
go.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Am I loud?
No.
Okay, good.
I can't tell if you're overly loud. Let's put it that way. Until I look at a video in editor.
Okay, so going back to the chips and the processors and the special fluids, that has to do with the lithography when they actually burn the chips. Because as it goes from originally when we started off back in the 80s, it was like a 20 or 25 micron lithography. Now they're down to 3 on the biggest ones. So you got to be 100 times cleaner now than you had to be for when the first Pentiums came out.
Right. And it doesn't stop there.
Right.
But also I've seen there is in existence, I don't think to the public or anybody yet, there's now CPUs being made that use light because silicon cannot handle the ever decreasing connections. It becomes a bottleneck with the super fine wires that go out to your connection pads or pins.
Yeah.
Please mute yourself again.
Will do.
So generally speaking, we have a heck of a lot of material, and there's no way of easily getting through a lot of this. Now let's take as an example. Ooh, what happened there? Oh, I forgot to transfer you. Nuts. Well, oh, wrong one. Okay. I've got a list of about 52, I think it is, pieces of software that I have been looking at. And generally speaking, I'm not saying every piece of these software are for everybody by any stretch of the imagination. But because of these pieces of software, except for 1 or 2, they're all in your software manager. And so you don't have to go to a command line to do an install. You don't have to have Synaptics installed to install them. They're right in Software Manager, and it's available. But a couple of them that are out there, hang loose here for a second while I bring this share back up. And I want to go over a little bit of some of these that I have glossed over a bit in the past. We're used to using gparted, but gparted is no longer part of the automatic install. They took it out. And the reason they took it out is they put in discs. Now this is machine's only got one disc, so we click on that and we see all the partitions. And if we have it highlighted like the UEFI partition is here, we can see some of the things. It's mounted as a boot EFI. It's an EFI system. It's 249 megabytes in size, of which 218 are free. So it's only got a 12% fill, which seems like a waste, but it's negligible these days in machines we have. But you'll notice here, I can take here and unmount with the little square piece, which usually in video means stop. But it means unmount that partition so that the system doesn't see it anymore and can't make any changes to it. But next to it is a gear. This gives you a drop-down menu of things. I can edit the partition. I can edit the file system. I can check the file system to make sure that it appears to be okay, not having problems. I can repair it if necessary. I can remount if I unmounted this partition. I can create a partition image. I can restore a partition image, and I can benchmark that partition. It's more meaningful with this next one. That's the root. Right now, it's 55 gigabytes in size, and it has 63.2% full. But Linux isn't as bad as Windows is in starting to slow down your system after 65%. Thank goodness. But again, if I click on the gear, I can format the partition, edit it. I can edit the file system. I can resize the partition. I can check file system, repair it, take ownership. If it says I don't have the ownership, I can make it so that it is mine. This comes in handy with the home partition, but not in whole. The home partition has all users, and if a user's no longer being accessing the computer, I can take ownership of what they have in case there's something of value in there that needs to be kept. This is usually the concept of a business use, not a home use. So these are, this one here is the home partition. It's 57% full. And I have a, pardon me, I have a broken out VAR system here, but I haven't transferred everything that I need to yet. But basically, the VAR partition breakout can be done after the fact, or it can be done at the time you're initially installing Linux on a computer. What goes into VAR? Two major things that I know of in VAR are your virtual machines, and the second thing is flat packs. I don't know that it applies to snap packs. I haven't had time to investigate that. But I only have one Ubuntu system that uses snap packs, and just about everybody else uses flat packs. I do know that KDE Neon, which Earl McCoy likes to use, that one does seem to rely on snap packs, but anything that has snap packs, you should be able to add flat pack support and add flat packs as well. just like we're using flat packs as the default. If we want to, we can add support for snap packs and install snap software. So I thought I would bring this utility up and discuss it a bit. It's I'll enlarge that, but I don't know if it's going to increase the readability, especially the print there. So I can try one idea that might work. No, I didn't think so. I think I've tried it before. It's the usual keys of trying to zoom the video text content doesn't work. But at least you get the general concept of what I'm trying to get across. Now, that's utility number one. Number two, and I'm only going to go through some of these. I'm not going through everything. Is disk usage. Disk usage, I saw a video that really allows you to understand more about your system. For example, it's going to create a graph here, and it's showing you some details. But off to the left side here, there's a tiny, let's see here, a little tiny arrow. And if you click that downloads, it gives you the detail and how much each one is taking up. Of course, the majority of them are negligible, and these are not that big. So we don't necessarily care about it, but we can also go to the rings to try and isolate other areas that are seemingly taken up a lot. And it shows here this one folder called RTL8821CE-master. It's got something called HAL inside of it that's very large, relatively speaking, and the other content is so small, it's not funny. So you're getting down to 4.1 kilobytes. That's not even a speck of dust in relative terms on our computers these days in space. But it gives you that kind of a refinement. I am currently in size order. I can reverse the order. I can also go to content and reverse the content. I can look at modified date when something was created and reverse the order of the modified date. So this gives you a lot of granularity to be able to look at what is taking up space on your system to help you when things are getting tight as to where is all my space going? Because a lot of people have no idea how much garbage they may be collecting and keeping on their disk, particularly in music, photos, and videos are three big areas. And we don't listen to all of our music. We usually are listening to a select amount of music. The other music can be archived off that drive to another drive in the system or to an external drive. Same with pictures. If you're really working on them and maybe creating a collage or something similar for other people, you have to have the photos you need on your current running system. But when the need disappears for several months, perhaps it's time to move them to a second drive in your system and or an external drive. Then you have the same thing for videos. Even I take I collect so many videos of our meetings on the main drive, but periodically I take all those and I move them to a secondary drive, and I usually put them in a compressed folder to minimize the amount of space they're taking up. So that's something to consider. Uh, but my opinion is I would separate, if you use an external drive, your backup drive for backup images of your system. And that also includes time shift snapshots versus your data. I would have a separate drive for just copying over data and removing it from your system. I would do the equivalent of a cut on the main system and paste it into the external extra drive, and it'll automatically delete the stuff off that drive. So there's two tools that are not part of having to look up Software Manager. But let's assume you decided to remove either one of these. You can go into your Software Manager and reinstall them at your heart's content. So that's something to always keep in mind. Pardon me. Boy. There we go. All right. That takes care of that one. Now let's bring up Software Manager. Any questions so far before I continue on? By the way, Drew, you brought up MPV as a player. VLC's got the majority of the market for a video player, whether you're on Linux, Windows, even Mac. So it's that would be the more logical one to check out, see how VLC works on your Linux system. At any rate,
I know about VLC. I'm just been experimenting with.
that's fine. I mean, we all got to experiment because if we don't know, then we may be missing something that's good or better than what we already do know. And that's the purpose of what I'm going through here right now. Now I'm going to do a attempted search. Boy, playing with 4 computers is a pain. Okay, piece of software. It's called Mission Center. I found out about this and all that material that I've been farming so far. Its functional features monitor overall per thread CPU usage, see system processes, threads, and handle count, uptime, clock speed, base and current, cache size, monitor RAM and swap usage, see a breakdown how the memory is being used by the system, monitor the disk utilization and transfer rates, monitor network utilization and transfer speeds, see network interface information such as network card name, connection type, Wi-Fi or Ethernet, wireless speeds and frequencies, hardware address and IP address. Monitor overall GPU usage, video encoding, decoding usage, memory usage, and power consumption based by the popular NV Top project, which I didn't get into any depth on. Monitor system fans. See a breakdown of resource usage by app and process. Support a manifest a minified summary view for simple monitoring. I guess that's a shrunken down version that gives you a tight summary of what's going on. And then you can probably go to any section. Use hardware acceleration rendering for all the graphics in an effort to reduce CPU and overall resource usage. That's a function of the GPU. Use GTK4 and LIBADWAITA, however they announce it. It's written in Rust, and Rust is getting into more and more code right now. There's even some in the Linux kernels. So there are some limitations being listed here. I can't read them all because I got some icon for editing in this. But Intel GPU monitoring when using Linux, Mint, Cinnamon, launch applications may not show up. And there is something else here I can't read because of too much blockage, but it has to do with the Linux Mint Cinnamon issues. So it gives you probably some tips as to if you experience a problem. These are some of the known issues. This is the best graphic information. There's a review that you can look at and get other people's opinion. Now, take reviews with a grain of salt. Usually it's in retailers' review of products that you have to worry the most. I think reviews within, say, Linux resources are more believable by Linux people. But this thing gets very, very high rating. It's not quite a 5.0, but because a couple of one or two people here, two people gave it 4 stars instead of 5 stars. So it probably comes out like 4.8, 4.9, something like that. So that's a piece of software worth looking at. Another one. Is there any comments or questions on Mission Center? Okay, I'm going on. Oops. Come on. This one's called ZenMap. And it doesn't have a whole lot of information. ZenMap is an Nmap front end. Now, Nmap, I know a little bit about. I use it to some extent, not probably heavy enough, but Nmap gives you a network map of your network in your home. For me, if I had lots and lots of my machines turned on, that could be important to know what machines are up and running, to transfer files between those machines would be very, very easy to handle. You would have the ability to find out, hey, a system that's supposed to be on isn't showing up. Maybe I need to go check it out. Maybe somehow it got turned off, unplugged. knocked down and it didn't turn back on, and I have to turn it back on manually, especially like in a power outage, because I usually have mine set not to automatically turn on as soon as the electricity comes back on. And that's a safety feature because there's always a spike when the electricity gets turned back on. And this prevents damage to your equipment, at least up to a point. It's perfect, it's not, but at least it beats the alternative of having it automatically turn back on and get whacked with that spike. And sometimes when the electricity goes on, it goes off again, on again, off again, on again. It can drive you nuts depending on how electric service is in your given area. So it's something that might be worth really investigating. Any comment or questions that I might be able to answer? Okay. Here's another interesting little tidbit. Oh, but didn't have the cursor in the right spot. Called warehouse. Now, this one here is the one you want. It gets a 4.8 rating. And I don't know how much you can tell from that postage stamp view of it, but I'm gonna, in details, there isn't a lot, but there's here are the features. Manage installed flat packs and view properties of any package. Change version of a flat pack to roll back any unwanted updates. Pin runtime and mask flat packs. That one I haven't totally figured out, and I haven't had time to even look at a lot of these in depth. Filter packages and sort data to help find anything easily. See current app user data and clean up any unused data left behind. Add popular flat pack remotes with a few clicks, or add custom remotes. And I can't read the next words completely because of this icon. Hang on a minute here. Responsive UI to fit large and small screen size. The other thing to note with a lot of these pieces of software, they are flat packs. And I'll tell you right now what I learned in the last month. If you only got, say, a half a dozen or less flat packs, not a big deal. When you start getting past a half a dozen flat packs, if you don't have the var folder broken out into its own partition like home is, you are going to run into problems with your root directory getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until you got no room left to do much of anything. And that can affect your updates and upgrades. So you're going to have to be examining how many flat packs do I have. And when it starts going over 6, you got to look at breaking out the var partition if you got the space. And it can be on a second drive that you've got in your system. But if you're running a single drive, a lot of times you steal unused space from the home directory more so than the root directory. And you would take and shrink home making a fair size partition called var and moving all your var content off of the root into that partition. Then you rename the var partition in root and you keep it for a while. And it's your comfort level that determines how long. But you might put in, change the name of var to var.old. Then you make a new var that's empty, contains nothing. And make sure you reboot, bring everything up, and the new var partition with a var folder should be there and active. The second thing is if you want to do virtual machines, say you want to have a virtual machine for Windows 10 in case you need to refer to it for a year or two. The other would be, say, a Windows 11 virtual machine, or you may have other Linux distros that you put in a virtual machine to check out, to test out, to see what you like, what you don't like about it. If you don't like it in total, you blow the virtual machine away. If you like it, you might keep it around as a virtual machine, or you may end up putting that on bare metal. Anybody got any comment or questions about this one? This seems to be able to address some flat pack issues that some people run into. I have others. Whether we get to them today, I don't think we'll get to them today. There's too many here. I can tell you there's another package we won't get to tonight that gives a flat pack permissions manager. So that'll be coming up in a future meeting. All right. Now, this one's called Ignition. Now, the one thing I can't tell you about because I didn't get into it, there is a first boot installer and configuring program, and I don't know if it's related to Ignition itself as the application. And it's a flat pack, so I have a feeling this may have been a native install package at one time, but now it's supported as flat pack. And come on. There we go. All right. Now, this one doesn't give a lot of information on it. Ignition provides a simple UI to add, remove, modify, startup entries on your computer. And Ignition can add apps, scripts, and arbitrary commands to run at login. Now, what they're referring to is if you go to your start, type in up at the search area, start, you'll see here the first item is startup application. You click it. This is your current control of what starts up on your computer. Now, Bluetooth is one that I usually turn off, and I only turn it on when I want and need Bluetooth. Most of the time it's off. That saves boot up time and resources. I have two entries here that look like they're the same. One's off, one's on. And it has to do with individual machines that I boost the low idle speed on. It does not do overclocking. The Mint Welcome I can disable here versus the little checkbox on the being unchecked to get rid of it. But it's always there available to bring up. It's in your program list. Print queue I leave on. I never know when I'm going to be able to need printing. SSH key agent. I usually have that off unless I know I need SSH to remote into a server type computer or even another desktop computer. But they both have to be set up to allow for remote access by SSH. There's a support for NVIDIA. That's usually on, even if you got no NVIDIA in your system. So I have to turn that manually off and save resources for that. System reports, I always leave that on. That lets us know when there's updates like 22.2, which I have not updated yet because I've been too busy to mess with it. And I'm getting all the updates regardless. Update manager, I always leave on. It lets me, gives me a visual down on the tray area, as we call it in Windows, that lets you know, oh, you've got some updates, one or more, to apply to your system when you're ready. So that's what we're talking about with Ignition. And I've got two more I'm going to do tonight, and then I'll stop at that. The next one. I don't know if they announced it lacked or what the heck they call it, but there's only one here. And you open it up. LAC lets you configure and monitor your AMD, NVIDIA, or Intel GPU on Linux. So it's for GPU control, whether it's using shared memory and it's built into your system, or it's a card that's plugged into your system. It has detailed GPU information, overclocking, power limits, fan control, and monitor with historical charts. So if you want fine-grained control over your GPU and how much it's being utilized by your computer, this may give you some details you might otherwise not get. Any questions or comments on that one? I got one more to go, and I am not going to try and announce it. I'll let you guys figure this one out. This is the one that's a flat pack, and they don't tell you much about it. However this thing is enunciated, is a simple, fast, easy to use app to remove unnecessary files from your computer. And it apparently gives you dark mode, light mode, maybe mixed mode as well. Reviews seem to be quite strong, except for one person who only gave it 3 stars. Maybe they knew of a better utility. And one other person gave it 4 stars. So it's probably about a 4.7 as a guess. $4.5. Oh, well. It's still very highly rated. And where did I get all this information? Basically from everything I mine, because that's how I get the information. Especially on videos, I listen to what's going on. I pick up a bunch there. I had some videos that talked about, say, a dozen pieces of software, but only seemed to highlight maybe 8. So there were 4 buried that you had to hear to know that they were there, and you had to go through the video a little bit at a time to pick up the ones that were not, shall we say, totally highlighted. And I also look at comments frequently. Uh, most, I'll say, comments are who cares? But sometimes you find people are providing alternative or additional pieces of software in their comments. And I will fish that information out as well. That's the way I do things. And in articles, I do kind of the same thing. So you have to honestly listen. When you're in a Zoom meeting, if you get distracted too much or your mind is not focused on the meeting and its content, you may miss a great deal. And I've seen a lot of people that couldn't tell me even one highlight out of a Zoom meeting. And I'm not joking when I say that, because they're not focused in on what's being said and the information being relayed to them. And they may even miss it when it's visually presented to them, like I just did with what I gave you today. But generally speaking, these are items that I came up with, and I've got a whole bunch more that'll come up in future months. None of them are that absolute, but at least they are something that you should know about more than what we have covered so far. A lot of these I haven't heard of. So I'm learning too at the same time. And I don't think any of us knows everything about everything, because if we did, our head would have exploded like a ripe watermelon hit by something massive. Okay, any further questions, and I'll switch the presentation to my handout, and I'm not even fully prepared there. I'm going to do it a little bit differently than what I normally have done. All right. All right. Yeesh. Now, if you think I was fibbing about the size of this thing, lots of this is YouTube. One of these days before I pass away, we'll get to the bottom. There we go. So as you can see, this is an extensive list of stuff. So generally, I've added a few extras in here on YouTube search results. I've discovered there's a Linux for seniors, kind of like Windows Tech for seniors. So it's something that you can also peruse for that. Also, I have a browser search called Church Ultra Book to convert Chromebooks to Linux as a resource. And it goes through a lot of stuff if you want to attempt to do this yourself. Ton Does Linux has had a lot of news. There's a couple other ones. There's one that bothers me a little bit. He's been very good on resources, but I haven't added them here because there are two versions. He's got a regular public version and he has a private Patreon type version. And if you're not a Patreon member, you cannot view it at all, even though it's posted on YouTube. So how he works that, I'm not sure. But at any rate, Linux troubleshooting with AI. Practical tips every admin should know about. So we're going to try and launch this and see what happens. And I know I haven't got that sound set right because I keep forgetting about it. My sharing, move you out of my way and proceed.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Learn Linux TV. In this video, we're going to discuss artificial intelligence, or AI, something that I'm sure many of you are getting quite tired of hearing about nowadays because AI is everywhere, whether you like it or not. But the thing is, I wanted to discuss AI as it pertains to Linux. Surprisingly, we can actually use AI to benefit our Linux career. We could use it to come up with code to solve a problem, or even troubleshoot a system administrator related job. And in this video, we're going to take a look at exactly that, how AI can be used to help us troubleshoot our Linux installations and add value to our Linux experience in general. Of course, I'm going to give you guys some general information about AI as well, especially my thoughts on the subject. The thing is, AI is not perfect, and I'll show you some examples of how imperfect it happens to be shortly. But if we approach it with reasonable expectations, it can very much benefit our Linux career. And the thing is, due to general AI fatigue, I wasn't sure whether or not I'd even do a video about AI at all on this channel, but I guess it's inevitable that I'd have to cover it at some point. So what I decided to do is create a video on how Linux users can make practical use of AI. So what I'll be doing is going over 10 examples of using AI to benefit your overall Linux experience. We'll look into using it to explain Linux-related technologies, troubleshooting, or even generating config files we can use for various purposes. It's going to be a lot of fun. And to start us off, in the next section, I'll give you my thoughts about AI in general, and then from there, we'll see the examples. So without any further hesitation, let's get started. So let's get into my overall thoughts about AI and some tips for using it responsibly. And although I'm sure many of you are sick and tired of hearing about AI nowadays, the truth is, using AI can actually help us wrangle our Linux systems and provide a significant boost to our productivity. As we'll explore throughout the video, I'll go over some examples that I think will make it clear just how it could benefit you. Another thing to consider is that AI isn't always accurate, and that's due to how new of a concept it happens to be. For an example of this, I decided to ask ChatGPT a random Linux-related question. I asked it how to enable all repositories with unattended upgrades in Debian. Of course, it's arguable whether or not you should actually set up unattended upgrades that way, but I was curious what AI would come back with. In this case, the code that was provided to me was completely invalid, and when I implemented it on a test server, It actually killed the unattended upgrades process altogether. After that, I was curious if another chat agent would give me a better answer, so I asked Claude AI the exact same question. And this time, the information that I received was not only correct, but it worked perfectly. And that leads right into another important thing to consider, that not all chat agents are created equally. In fact, some will work better in certain situations than others. Personally, I use both ChatGPT and Claude AI, and I find that their pros and cons pretty much make them equal. And for that reason, I regularly use one to check the other. For another example of this, I recently asked Claude AI to create an Ansible playbook that would remove LibreOffice and all related packages from my workstations. I wanted to do this since I use the Flatpak version of LibreOffice, so I didn't really see a reason to also have the distribution packages installed. I just wanted to use the Flatpak version. So when I asked Claude AI to create an Ansible playbook to remove all LibreOffice packages, this is what it came back with. Now, it's possible that this code might have worked just fine, but I knew right away that it was overkill. You don't really need to perform this many steps to simply remove all LibreOffice packages. I was able to accomplish the exact same thing in Ansible by simply doing this. Just one play and I was done. But the main point here is that anything you get back from AI will be correct most of the time, but every now and then it might not be the best way to do something, and in some cases might be wrong altogether. Now at this point it might seem like I'm being overly critical of AI and that I might not like it, but actually I really do like it and I find it useful. But the thing is, on this channel, it's my goal to present technologies to you as they actually are without any unnecessary fluff. And the fact is, AI is very helpful, but it's just not perfect. But where exactly does it fit in? What benefits does AI provide to Linux users and administrators? What I'm going to do right now is go over 10 different examples of how AI can benefit you as a Linux system administrator. So let's dive in. Tip 1. Explain Linux concepts. My first tip is that AI can help you understand Linux concepts. Now, of course, for those of you that already use AI, you probably already do this, but this subject is a good starting point. And the thing is, Linux in general is a huge topic. There's a ginormous number of things to learn, and no one will ever learn everything. In addition, new technologies are coming out constantly, and existing technologies are often refined and improved upon. As Linux continues down its path of dominance, you may hear about something in the news or need some clarification on something. And this is a task that's easy for AI to help us out with. For example, you can ask AI what the difference is between two technologies that serve the same goal and which you should use for a particular purpose. Often, your AI chat agent will present a table that'll show you the differences between related technologies, helping you make a decision on which to use within your environment. For example, you could consider asking AI to explain the difference between a cron job and a systemd timer. And if you don't even know what a systemd timer is in the first place, then you can simply ask AI to explain the concept to you. Of course, I do have videos on this channel that cover systemd timers, but if you need a quick answer, then AI is a really great way to do it. You can also ask AI what command you should use for a particular situation, such as when you need to transfer a file between two servers. You can ask it to give you specific commands that'll serve that purpose, as well as options that you might use to fine-tune the process. And that'll help you formulate a workflow that you can use to get something done. And now it's time for my second tip, which is using AI to explain output that you might receive from terminal commands. As seasoned Linux veterans know, there's a ton of things to keep track of, and when you're working with the command line, you may end up in a situation where you're not sure what exactly you're looking at, and you might need some help to wrap your head around it. For example, let's say you're working with a systemd unit, and you check its status. You might see output that looks something like this. Of course, working with systemd units is something that most Linux administrators learn during their first year on the job, but if you haven't seen output like this before, you can actually copy the output that you receive from a command like this, and then have AI explain what exactly is going on. In addition, anytime you see an error message and you're not sure why you're seeing that message, AI is a good starting point. It can offer you clues as to what you're encountering and give you a list of things to check for. Another example is explaining file permissions. If you're new to Linux, you may need help understanding how a particular permission string impacts file access. If you paste a permission string into AI, it'll be able to break it down for you and explain what exactly is happening. Or if you don't understand permissions at all, you can ask AI to explain the concept in general. Of course, you could always view the video that I have right here on the channel that explains permissions, but in a pinch, AI can give you some general information that you might find helpful. Continuing, let's explore my third tip, and that is you can actually use AI to improve security and harden your servers. For example, if you have SSH installed on a Linux server, you could paste your SSH config right into an AI service and have it give you recommendations on improving its security. It'll look at your config file line by line and look for best practices that you might not be taking advantage of. Of course, be mindful that just because you've used AI to harden a config file, that doesn't necessarily mean your Linux server or workstation is safe from threat actors. Security is a huge subject, and there's countless methods that someone might use to break into your system. If you're a Linux administrator, you'll need to stay vigilant, and using AI won't replace that. But instead, you can use AI as a starting point and look for low-hanging fruit when it comes to things that you can adjust or tweak. Now, this will largely depend on what in particular you're running within your environment, but either way, the information that you get back from AI can help you look for easy tweaks that you can make to help improve your security posture, as well as look for best practices that you might not have enabled yet. Just don't take the information with extreme confidence because, again, threat actors are able to find all kinds of ways to break into systems, but AI can definitely help you not make it as easy for them. Continuing, let's take a look at how AI can help you make sense of logs. Logging is a very complex subject within the Linux world, and it's made more complicated by the fact that not every app logs information the exact same way. There's often a specific format for errors, with information that's going to be specific to a particular service. Sometimes information in log files is obvious. For example, if a log file complains that you've run out of hard disk space, you probably won't need AI to help explain that. As soon as you see an error message that your storage is full, you'll know right then and there what you'll need to do when it comes to cleaning up your files. But beyond the obvious, you'll run into situations constantly where you're seeing an error message for the very first time and you might need help understanding it. For example, consider a web server. If you aren't able to access a web page from your Linux server, you could paste your Apache or Nginx log files into AI and have it help you understand what exactly is going on and why your site isn't working. Just about any logging related output can be explained by AI, so it's worth a shot. Sorry to interrupt my own video, but I wanted to let you guys know about something really cool that I created recently. I put together the Ultimate Linux Commands Cheat Sheet, a downloadable PDF that covers all the essential Linux commands, as well as some great bash aliases, hardening tips, and other nuggets that I've picked up over the years. For just a $3 donation, it's yours, and it makes a great reference for those of you that work with a terminal. And while you're there, check out my other products at the shop as well. There's all kinds of Linux-themed products there. For example, t-shirts like the Dark Side of the Terminal. There's a classic Debian swirl tee, and even a shirt to warn those around you that you're obsessed with Linux. Every purchase helps keep this channel going. There's a lot of cost involved with editing all the content for you guys, and it also helps justify the amount of caffeine that I go through while I edit these videos. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting Linux learning. I really appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the video. Continuing, let's take a look at how AI can help us with systemd timers. I've covered systemd timers on this channel already, but even if you're well versed in how to create them, there's still a lot of benefit that AI can offer when it comes to this subject. For those of you that have never heard of a systemd timer before, you can use these to schedule tasks to happen at a particular time. If you're already familiar with cron jobs, for example, then the goal of a systemd timer is more or less the same, but systemd timers offer additional benefits and are recommended over cron jobs going forward. But when it comes to creating a systemd timer, it can be confusing. And other times there might be settings where you're not exactly sure what it is that they do. To see this in action, ask an AI service to create a systemd timer for you. Give it the name of the executable that you want it to run, and also describe any detail about how you want it to be handled. For example, let's assume you've written a bash script that backs up your entire system to a storage server. You could give it the path and file name for your script, and then tell it how often you want it to run. For example, you can explain to AI that you want the job to run every hour and that you might also not want it to run during the first 2 hours of uptime. Another thing that you might want it to do is have the job run even if the server was powered down during the last time it would have triggered. You can explain this criteria to AI and then it can formulate a systemd timer that'll meet your needs. For tip number 6, let's take a look at how AI can generate a custom bash prompt for your terminal. Not everyone knows that you can even do this at all, but you can actually increase your productivity by customizing your bash prompt and having it include information that's useful to you. For an example of this, consider my bash prompt. Now, I didn't have AI generate this one. I've actually been using it for a number of years now. In my case, I see the current system time, the working directory, the number of jobs I have in the background, and I also have a line return right before the command function, so that way I make better use of my terminal real estate. You can get a lot of use out of a customized prompt, believe it or not. But the thing is though, most people don't customize this and they end up using the bash prompt as is. So if you weren't aware that you could customize your prompt, well, now you know. However, custom bash prompts are a bit hard to create because the options that you'll use are complicated and often are hard to make sense of. To see what I mean, what I'm going to do right now is reveal the code behind my bash prompt. And yes, this is the actual code that is responsible for my bash prompt as of July of 2025. When it comes to seasoned Linux veterans, this is easier to understand, but for the rest of us, it probably looks like a foreign language. But with AI, it becomes incredibly simple to generate a bash prompt. All you have to do is tell your AI service of choice what it is you're looking for and what you want to achieve with it. Perhaps you might tell AI that you want the prompt to be colored green, maybe you want it to include the fully qualified domain name, perhaps a job count, and maybe you even want a new line similar to mine. Basically, you just explain the criteria to your AI service of choice, and then you have it generate a bash prompt for you. And you could test this very easily as well by simply copying and pasting the config right into your terminal prompt, and you should see the changes immediately. Now, you will lose this configuration if you close your terminal and reopen it, so if you like it, you can add it to your bashrc file to make it permanent. Or if you need additional modifications, you could tell AI what changes in particular it needs to make, and then you keep tweaking it until you get something that you want to use. You'd be surprised how much a good bash prompt can enhance your workflow. Another tip that I have for you guys is using AI to solve dependency hell. If you haven't ever heard of that term before, dependency hell refers to situations in which you're working with Linux packages, such as installing something, and then you end up in a situation where you can't get something installed because of unmet dependencies. And sometimes this can be an issue with a repository or an actual problem with the package itself. Now, to be fair, we don't run into dependency hell within the industry nearly as often as we used to. When I first started working with Linux, dependencies weren't handled automatically for you. You had to download each individual package manually and work through this situation yourself. Nowadays, with package managers such as apt, DNF, Pacman, Zipper, and others, this situation is pretty much handled for you. However, dependency hell is not a thing of the past, at least not completely. And although it's rare, you'll absolutely run into it at some point. If you end up running into a situation like this and you're not exactly sure how to deal with it, then AI can help. To make use of this, if you're attempting to install a package and you receive an error during the process, then you can consider pasting that information into your AI agent. The better AI services can even check repositories for you and offer advice that's tailored to the exact thing you're doing. Sometimes a package might have been renamed or replaced with something else. There's a number of different situations that might come up whenever you're working with Linux packaging. In my case, AI has been pretty good when it comes to navigating dependency hell. It's not perfect. But the thing is, I've received helpful advice more often than not. Continuing, let's take a look at command strings. When it comes to Linux, the fact that we could take the output of one command and use it as input for another command is kind of a superpower. Most Linux commands and utilities accept input and then produce output. The input can come from you directly, or you can capture the output from one command as input to another. And this is why many Linux administrators are able to produce really impressive results simply by chaining commands together. For example, consider this scenario. Say you want to grab the output of a log file, remove duplicated lines, and then sort the output. But if you explain to AI what in particular you're trying to do, it can make it simple to generate a command that does what you need. Next, let's talk about desktop files. You can actually use AI to generate these files. Now, if you haven't ever heard of a desktop file before, they're files that end with a .desktop extension, and they're used to launch graphical applications within a Linux desktop environment such as GNOME or KDE. Now, most of the time, you'll never have to work with these directly, since they're often included automatically when you install an app on Linux. For example, if you were to install Steam, then a desktop file to launch Steam will automatically be installed, and that's how newly installed apps show up within your application launcher. Again, you normally never have to mess with these because most of the time these are created automatically for you whenever you install an app. However, sometimes you may want to install something manually. A good example of this is the Firefox web browser. When you install Firefox with a package manager such as apt or DNF, you'll get an application launcher automatically. However, you can also install Firefox manually as well, completely sidestepping your package manager. One reason why some people do this is because they want to manage an app themselves. In the case of Firefox, you could download a compressed archive of the most recent release and run it from anywhere on your file system. And one of the benefits of doing this is that you'll have access to the latest release of Firefox immediately, rather than waiting for your package manager to update it. In the case of Debian, which includes an older version of Firefox by default, you can run the latest Firefox completely upon release. Of course, there's other apps that you can install manually. Firefox is just one example. The thing is though, when you run something like Firefox from a downloaded archive, you won't have an icon for it within your application launcher. Since you've sidestepped your package manager completely when you install something manually, your desktop environment won't even be aware that you're running Firefox this way. To fix this, you can manually create a desktop file for your downloaded app and still have it appear in your application launcher despite installing it manually. And that's where AI comes into play. In the case of Firefox, you could provide AI with a path on your file system where you've downloaded it manually and ask it to create a desktop file to help you launch it. Then you could save the desktop file in the appropriate place, and then from that point forward, Firefox will appear in your application launcher just like any other application would, despite the fact that you've installed it manually. Finally, tip number 10, and this is where we step away from productivity and have a bit of fun. Using AI, we could generate some humorous responses, or create something completely ridiculous just for fun. For example, consider having AI explain commands to you. If you don't know how to use a command, you can ask AI to provide examples. But this is nothing new. In fact, our first tip covered exactly this. If you want to have some fun, then consider having AI explain a command as if it's being explained by a fictional character. One of my favorite examples of this is to have AI summarize the kill command as if it was being explained by a Klingon. Sometime back, I even asked AI to summarize the ls command as if it's being explained by Regina George from Mean Girls. Fun times. It's completely ridiculous, but I find it hilarious. And there's our video. In this video, we went over some of the ways where AI can assist us as Linux users and administrators, and I hope you found it helpful. If you did, then be sure to click that like button to let YouTube know. Also,
Any comments or questions? Things to consider before switching to Linux. Well, this one might work.
We're taking a look at things to consider before you switch to Linux. Now, there's quite a few different options available for Linux. Linux Mint is one of the ones that a lot of people always recommend. Now, of course, if you ask any Linux user, they're going to all have their own opinion, but Linux Mint is a good option. Zorin OS is another great option for people that are transitioning over from Windows to Linux. Now, again, this is one of my go-to that I recommend to people all the time because I do believe it is one of the best options available to them. Pop! OS is another viable option available to people. And let me know in the comments section what versions of Linux you would offer to people, because I think people that are transitioning over to Windows will want to know all this useful information. Manjaro is another option that I would put up there for a valid alternative to Windows operating systems. And there's plenty of others to choose from. Just know one thing, that Windows is not Linux. They're both different operating systems. So switching to Linux from Windows requires a careful consideration. There's some key differences, including the user interface, software compatibility, and how the system is managed. Linux offers a highly customizable and open source experience, but it may lack direct compatibility with some of Windows specific types of software and hardware. So you definitely want to try that out. I would definitely suggest that you download a few distros like I'm showing you right here, and installing them into a virtual machine. So you don't have to install them fully. You can either install them into a virtual machine or you can try them in a live environment. I'll show you that in a second once we get this part set up. But this is an important part because what this is going to do is allow you to test the actual distros out and be able to see which one you prefer. And there's plenty to choose from. Sometimes people say there's too much choice instead of just concentrating on a few good ones. But you can see here, this is the option you're going to get once you boot up for the very first time. There will be a box popping up saying try Zorin OS or install Zorin OS. This is just for Zorin. It will do this for every different version of distro that you're going to try. So you can either try it or install it. I'm going to go ahead and install it, and we're going to get to the desktop and take a look at it. I made videos showing you how to install this onto a virtual machine before, and it's pretty straightforward. So you want to test your hardware to ensure that all your peripherals are working properly, like your keyboard, mouse, and stuff like that. It looks exactly like Windows, but it's Linux. You've got all of the same features as you would have on Windows, so this should be very familiar to you. Test all your peripherals like your printers, your scanners, your mouse, keyboard. Make sure everything is working exactly how it should be. Once you're happy that everything works, you can then commit with the install once you find the one that suits you. You've got all the same features like dark mode, light mode, and you can change all your audio here. There's plenty to choose from, the same as you would have on Windows. You've got software updaters. This will update all the software and keep it all fully updated. While we're on the software subject, make sure you make a full list of all the software that you use on Windows. If any of this software is mission critical stuff, i.e. you must have it working, you need to make sure that that is compatible with Linux. You're going to need to sign in quite a bit, so get used to that as well. But once you've got all of your software list down, a lot of the software may not work. Unfortunately, with Linux, there's going to be a major difference between what software runs on Linux and what runs on Windows. So you're going to have to accept at some point that some software that used to work on Windows is simply not going to work on Linux. They have plenty of alternatives, and you're just going to have to either get used to it or Linux is not for you. So let me just give you an example. Camtasia Studio does not work on Linux. Adobe Photoshop doesn't work on Linux. Microsoft Office doesn't work on Linux. I'm not running Linux down. I'm just telling you there is tons of different software that is not compatible with Linux, and you will need to find alternatives. Now, there is alternatives available, and you're just going to have to either adapt to using that new software, or it's just not an option for you. Now, if you work with...
Now, I'm going to stop it there because of the time we have to mention that there are one or more articles in here of setting up a virtual machine with Windows 10 or 11 in it, and you can load up that software that will not run on Linux natively and run it from a virtual machine while Linux is also running. It does require sharing of your CPU cores and memory. For a lot of people, you'll only run one virtual machine at a time. If you have a very powerful machine with lots of cores and tons of memory, you can then run multiple virtual machines along with your Linux machine main system, and do what you want in each one of the machines that it's custom tailored to, so to speak. So that if it's Windows software that is stopping you from using Linux, well, there are ways around the problem. Anybody who goes to APCUG meeting tomorrow, if you're not signed up already, you're probably not going to get in. But I know who the presenter is. I know exactly where he's coming from. He uses a paid package called Crossover that will cost about $50, $60, something like that. And it will allow Linux to run Windows software seemingly in a native fashion, but it's kind of a cross between a native running application and a virtual machine. it simulates more of a virtual machine to allow that Windows application to run. And let's see, 7 underrated features of Linux Mint. Let's see what happens with that one. Yeah.
This is
Come on.
When it comes to choosing a Linux distribution for your new operating system, Linux Mint is usually one of the most common ones to be recommended to you. But despite being incredibly easy to install and use, it can be quite powerful if you go a bit deeper into its desktop environment Cinnamon and the distribution itself. In today's video, I'm going to show you 7 awesome features of Linux Mint and Cinnamon which you may not know about, to improve its already great experience even further. And let's get straight into it. The first feature I want to show you is Hot Corners, which allows you to execute an action whenever you move your mouse into one of the 4 corners of your display. You can find this functionality in the system settings, whereas you can for one set which corners you want to be active and what they should do. One of my favorite actions to set here is Show All Workspaces, which gives you an overview of several open individual desktops. It's an, in my opinion, better approach to virtual desktops than Windows does it, and it behaves similarly like on the desktop environments GNOME and KDE Plasma. By scrolling with your mouse, you can quickly switch between them, or if you are inside a desktop, also use the Ctrl, Alt and arrow keys on your keyboard. You can, by the way, also adjust the workspace behavior in its own category, so that it fits your own needs. An incredibly powerful feature, especially on single monitor setups. My second favorite option is of course to set up a custom command to launch programs or trigger certain actions. By simply looking up the name of an application via its About page, which most programs should have in one way or another, we can simply start it by entering its name in lowercase. Some apps do of course need some special treatment, depending on how they are installed. But once everything is set up, you can make Cinnamon and Linux Mint way more efficient by using this functionality. My second tip to improve efficiency is to enable your mouse being able to automatically focus windows as soon as you move the cursor over them. You can enable this setting inside Windows, Behavior, and by choosing Hover as the Windows focus mode. Instead of having to first click into a window to press a button, this is now being done automatically for you. If you want to go even further, then you can also enable automatically raise focused windows, which automatically pulls the hovered over window up to the top. Not everyone likes this feature, but it's a great addition once you get used to it. One feature that is often overlooked when using Linux Mint is the ability to customize the login screen. And I'm not just talking about the basic stuff like changing the alignment of the elements, but also the ability to set up a preferred display, different wallpapers for each screen, or adding something like a company logo. What's that for though? Well, did you know that you can enable a login method for guests? A guest login will create a temporary guest account environment, which could be useful for some sort of kiosk device that should just function like a regular but safe PC. If your PC has a touchscreen, then you can also adjust its accessibility on the login screen in the Settings tab, and also all the other functionalities, like the clock format, if the quit button is available so that users cannot shut down the PC, and much more. When it comes to customizing, another feature of Cinnamon is that you can change the Actions menu. You know, the menu that appears when you right-click on your desktop, for example. In the settings under Actions, you can enable and disable entries from the menu, adjust their order in the Layout tab, but also add completely new entries from a rather small but still great library of community-made options. Some of them, like taking a screenshot, can be quite handy, especially when you're setting up Linux Mint for someone who is not really the most advanced user. In today's day and age, it has often become the norm to no longer install programs to check your emails anymore, but rather just use a web browser to view or send emails. This does have the advantage that you don't need to update anything, bother with setting up the connection, which can be quite finicky on occasion, but it also means that you often cannot integrate it that well into programs or the operating system. Let's change that, shall we? If you're using a Chromium-based browser like Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Brave and similar, or use the PWA extension for Firefox, most online email providers do offer the installation of a so-called progressive web app, which often comes with a so-called handler, which offers more advanced integration. What this means is that when you want to send a file or document directly via email, then this handler should automatically open up a new email template of your preferred email service. On other desktop environments, this sometimes works, but it's not really a guarantee, since sometimes the application might not register correctly in the operating system. Cinnamon, however, offers us the ability to set the web browser which we use to install the progressive web app via the Settings app, which means that we can make the email handler be recognized by the operating system as well. While this can be done on other desktop environments as well, not all of them are as easy as Cinnamon handles it. One feature that might come in handy if your device has a touchscreen or just simply a touchpad are gestures. Gestures allow you, given that your hardware is compatible with it, to bind the use of several fingers to different actions of the desktop environment. I'm, for example, a big fan of switching workspaces by dragging 3 fingers, like it's being done on GNOME, but you can also choose a different action from a huge set of additional options. One of them again being the ability to execute a command, like I've shown earlier during the Hot Corners introduction. Gestures make Linux Mint an incredibly powerful operating system for touchscreen devices, even though it still uses the old X11 display protocol by default, which does have some issues given its age. And while it doesn't feel as smooth and dynamic as it could be with Wayland, it still works really well. The last tip I want to give you is just a generic one. Customize its icons, fonts and overall looks to your liking. What seems like a chore for many, if you manage to find out exactly what you like, from looks to functionalities down to the menu detail, you will experience a workflow and efficiency which you never thought possible. Switching to Linux, even if I don't use Cinnamon, has resulted in an overall improved computer experience for me personally. I've never experienced any crashes or unusual behavior in years by now. Sure, it did take some time to figure out what I liked, since I didn't just want another Windows. But it was worth it, and all of the headaches that I initially experienced were ironed out over the incredible past 3 years of development. Just give it a shot and don't be afraid to customize it, because if you manage to find out what you like, then your experience using a computer will never be the same as before. And that's where I'll leave it. So, what did you think of these tips and tricks? Was there anything here that you didn't know yet? Is Linux Mint or just Cinnamon something that you would consider using yourself? Please let us know down in the comments.
Okay. Anybody got any comments on that one? Okay, I'll open the floor. Any last questions, problems, comments, etc. before we end the meeting? And like I say, I'll have to get with you guys by email.
Tim, send me the email.
What about the email?
Send it to me.
Everybody who attended the meeting gets the copy, period. Especially when I got to send it by email. But
Okay, okay.
or using Google Drive and sharing the document are the only 2 ways of getting something that's too big. And there's a possibility this is too big, but I doubt it. I've been able to send out more FYIs that are around the same size, so I'm not expecting an issue. I also will include a second file that has a few advanced topics. You ought to at least look at them, even if you don't totally understand or intend on using them. These are resources at your fingertips. What you're interested in today changes tomorrow. So you got to keep an open mind. Anybody got anything else?
Okay, got to hold down the space bar for a little while before it kicks in. I want to go back to that the sound screen that you had brought up earlier at the beginning of the meeting, where it had the headings: output, input, sounds, applications, and then the last one that says settings.
Right. Settings
And
is generic.
when I click on the one that says, well, I can read output. My output says 136%. My input says 80%. But when I go to settings, it says amplification 141%. And I'm trying to find out, what does that one mean? What does amplification mean there?
I never got into that depth. It's probably a case. Whoops, wait a minute, I got to switch.
And is that causing any problem for our meetings?
It's a possibility. I just can't tell you this second.
Well, plus, let me say this. For the whole meeting, I haven't had my sound turned on, so it shouldn't be a problem for this meeting. But I did want to know what that amplification does, if we know.
Well, let's see here.
Dennis, I've
Yes,
noticed when you first start talking, after you turn off the mute, your volume is really high, and then it drops down after you talk about three words. Do you have automatic volume control on that thing?
Not that I know of.
Well, that's
But
under
again, right now I'm talking on my Chromebook, so the Chromebook is different. I'm not using the audio, or I'm not using the
I don't have settings on my sound. I have applications on mine, not settings.
I have applications too, but after that there's settings. So I got 5 tabs.
I don't see settings on mine at all.
Huh.
It's not on mine either.
Now, I didn't upgrade. I still have the original installed.
Oh, I see where device settings is, but that device settings is under output. It's under input. It's not under sounds, but it has lots of sounds that can be automatically played. I don't mess with it. And then there's applications at the top. So the only time you see settings is on output and on input.
Yeah, well, on mine, it's the 5th tab.
There is no 5th tab on mine or Bob's.
Well, I could share my screen and let you see it.
Well, go ahead, but I don't think that's something we're going to resolve necessarily right away.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
now, here's another thing. Here, this is, I think I can share this. Hang on. Let's see if I can shoot myself in the foot. Under audio, and I come down to audio settings. Here's the built-in speaker. This is a speaker.
Jim, all we can see is a black box.
Why isn't it sharing?
All we can see is a black box because
I see what you're talking about, but it should be showing you the content. This is Zoom's audio settings, and for some reason it doesn't share that, and I can't tell you why with you guys. That's not necessarily a good thing.
Let's see if I can show this.
I don't see any setting that might be that would show the actual content. If you just go to audio the little up caret arrow on your
Mhm.
system, you have audio settings, and the top area is what service you are connected to, testing your speaker. It has output volume and what it's set to. Uh, Most of us don't have spatial audio, I'm sure. Next category is microphone, built in for me, but I can test the microphone by clicking on the button. I speak into it for about 10, 15 seconds, and then it automatically plays it back over your speakers. So you have a setting there, and right below that setting says automatically adjust microphone volume, and that for me should be turned off, but according to Bob, it may be applicable under Linux. Now, the recording that I'm doing on the main system, those are under Windows, and I have that automatic setting turned off because it seems to make my voice even quieter, and therefore it's very hard to make out what I'm saying. Then you have below that microphone modes, and usually it's set to noise removal default, background noise suppression, and automatically adjust noise suppression. So that's those settings. You also have in Windows, which I don't have up here at the moment that I can show you, but I can switch. Come on, okay. Now, if I share the desktop on this machine, I can go to settings in Windows. I can go to system, sound, and in system sound, which you're seeing there, I can change whether it's microphones, headphones or speakers. I can add additional devices. I have a volume control here. Mine's at 67%, and it may be a little too light. I might need to adjust that up because it's a combination kind of situation with the speaker having its own volume control also, besides what you have down here in the system tray has a volume control also. Your input, like a microphone, would be here, and you can click on this here to test your microphone to see how that's working. So there are sound settings in Windows in two places, and also Zoom has its settings. You got to play around with all of them. You can't just make assumptions that whatever you're doing is going to be absolute. And it across the board, especially when you have multiple systems like I do, and multiple operating systems. They don't all play the same way. And you've got at least two there. You've got a Linux system, you got a Chromebook. They're different. You can't assume one over the other. You got to make a decision. Which one is my microphone processor? Which one is my speaker processor to hear the music? And you should only have one such device active. Even if I'm playing right now with 4 computers, only one has sound, only one has video, and that's it. If you try and have it on multiple systems, you make a mess of everything. And you got to be consistent in which machine you use for your sound and video. Anybody got anything else? Okay, we'll call it a night then, and maybe I'll see you guys at West Side.
Okay.
Okay.